in Washington, D.C. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Jillian and Rob. The Trump bump continues to roll in Kansas, but first, 4 states have spoken. We begin in Wisconsin. Republican State Senator Leah Vukmir won the GOP primary to face Democratic incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin. Vukmir was backed by the state's leading Republicans, Scott Walker, Reince Priebus, and Paul Ryan, and now she's jumping on the Trump train.
We're going to take that to Washington, where they need the help of a strong conservative to join the ranks, to help President Trump make America great, keep America great.
In the race to replace Ryan, a former aide to the Speaker, Brian Stile won. He will face Democrat nominee Randy Bryce, a.k.a. the Iron Stash. And Governor Walker got a Democrat opponent, the state's school superintendent, Tony Evers, with a message for the president.
Trump's tariffs are having a devastating impact on my hometown. It's been heartbreaking to watch.
Over to Gophers in Minnesota. Republicans rejected well-known former presidential candidate Tim Pawlenty for a newcomer aligned with President Trump. County Commissioner Jim Johnson, you see there, and congressional candidate Pete Stauber, who the president endorsed and campaigned with, easily cruised to victory, while embattled Democrat Keith Ellison, facing a series of abuse allegations, won the Attorney General primary. In Vermont, Democrats nominated Bernie Sanders for another term in the Senate, and they also nominated the first transgender candidate for Governor, Christine Hall. And in the Connecticut governor's race, it'll be Democrat Ned Lamont facing off against Republican Bob Stefanowski. Democrats also choosing a former Teacher of the Year, Jahana Hayes, for a House race. Finally, we have a winner in last week's gubernatorial primary in Kansas. Secretary of State Chris Kobach defeating incumbent Jeff Collier.
I'm issuing a call to unity for all Republicans as we now gear up and start marching in the general election campaign. It's absolutely essential that we march together.
Collier is the first incumbent governor to fall this primary season. Kobach was endorsed by President Trump. He will face Democrat Laura Kelly. And that is your roundup as we inch closer, just a little over 80 days until we vote in November.
We're getting there. Thank you very much, Griff.
The Trump campaign filing a complaint against ex-aide Omarosa Manigault Newman, claiming that she violated a non-disclosure agreement she signed in 2016.
Donald Trump has decided to sue me or to bring litigation against me, to silence me and to not allow me to tell my story. If you see me in a fight with a bear, pray for the bear.
She was on TV all day yesterday. In her new book, Omarosa claims the president used a racial slur on the set of The Apprentice. She says there's a tape. The White House is firing back.
The president has made very clear the way he feels about this book, the way he feels about what he sees as a betrayal. The president feels like he should be defending himself and also reminding everyone that he has given her many chances.
Omarosa was fired last year and has since revealed secret recordings with the president himself and also with White House staff.
The firing of Peter Strzok was justified. That's the opinion of a prominent former assistant FBI director. In an op-ed on FoxNews.com, Chris Swecker says, quote, the action was a decisive step in the right direction in correcting the wrongs committed by what has been described as Comey's skinny inner circle. This, as President Trump called Strzok and the Russia collusion investigation he helped start, a fraud. The disgraced agent was let go this week after sending anti-Trump text messages during the 2016 presidential campaign.
All right, a New Mexico judge getting death threats after granting bail to the suspects from that filthy compound. They're accused of starving children and training them to be school shooters.
Jackie Ibanez joins us live as one suspect is transferred to federal custody. Jackie.
Good morning. It's such an awful story. A New Mexico courthouse forced into lockdown after a judge gets more than 200 threats. Critics are fuming over Judge Sarah Backus's decision to grant bail to child abuse suspects. New Mexico court officials say some people are labeling her as an Islamic terrorist sympathizer, with one caller quoting, her throat would be slit, and another wished, quote, someone would smash her head. On Monday, she granted bail to the suspects, saying they weren't a threat to society. If they post the $20,000, they can be released with ankle monitors, despite prosecutors' claims they trained kids to kill teachers, law enforcement, and anyone else they found to be corrupt. Fox News national security strategist Dr. Sebastian Gorka says the judge is putting Americans in danger.
It's truly remarkable. This is perhaps the most horrific case study of just how politicized the judicial system has become in recent years. This isn't justice. This is where political correctness can get in the way of keeping Americans safe. It's a travesty.
But listen, this is not the first time Judge Backus has set bail for suspects accused of violent crimes. Just last month, she set a $10,000 bond for a man accused of beating his girlfriend, newborn baby, and a health care worker. You can see him right there. Meantime, none of the compound suspects have posted bail yet. One of them is now in federal custody this morning, but it's unclear why. Another cannot leave jail due to a warrant for child abduction charges in Georgia. Rob?
All right, we'll have more on this coming up in the next block of the show. Thank you so much, Jackie. Man accused in London's suspected terror attack just identified. Police say Sudanese immigrant Sally Kader slammed into 15 cyclists and pedestrians before plowing into that barricade right outside British Parliament. This chilling video you're going to see here shows the moments of the attack. 3 people were hurt. A motive for this is still unknown. In the meantime, police are searching several properties in central England, 2 of them in the suspect's hometown, where he was known by local police. The Taliban reeling after American airstrikes killed 220 terrorists in just 4 days. The attacks pummeling Afghanistan as militants continue a massive attack in several cities. More than 200 Afghan police officers and soldiers have been killed, the fighting forcing hundreds of innocent people to flee from their homes.
An appeal for the release of American pastor Andrew Brunson rejected overnight. The pastor held captive in Turkey on terror charges. Turkey also doubling tariffs on American goods like cars and alcohol while threatening to boycott iPhones. This coming after the U.S. increased levies against the nation for refusing to let Brunson go. The tariffs have sent Turkey into a currency crisis. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh heading to Capitol Hill today to meet with Democratic senators. He's hoping to rally support ahead of his September confirmation hearing. Today, he's sitting down with Senators Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Donnelly. Kavanaugh already met with West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin last month. The far left is fuming over the bipartisan breakthrough. With only 49 members of the Senate Democratic Conference, they don't think the party is doing enough to block Kavanaugh's confirmation.
All right, presidential advisor and first daughter Ivanka Trump showing support for the next generation of scientists and engineers. The first daughter meeting with an all-girls student robotics team in Pittsburgh.
That's amazing. Well, can you show me some of the different projects you guys have here?
Ivanka meeting with the Girls of Steel team at the Astrobotic Space Delivery Company. She spoke about the need to train students and workers in the digital economy. Cool stuff.
That is cool.
Just about 9 minutes after the hour, beyond absurd. New backlash for the judge who granted bond to the New Mexico compound extremists. Our next guest, President, American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, calling the ruling absurd, while he says the media is also to blame.
When someone comes to call out bigots and it gets hot, even physical, are they equally wrong as the bigot they are fighting? I argue no.
All right, Antifa, known for sparking violent riots and some recent threats to kill the president. CNN's Chris Cuomo defending them in some ways. The online outrage over this coming up. All right, welcome back. Competence in question. Calls mounting for liberal judge Sarah Backus to step down after granting bond to extremists accused of training kids to shoot up schools at that New Mexico compound.
And we've learned she recently released this man right here, a violent criminal with a record accused of beating a hospital worker, his girlfriend, and their newborn child.
President of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser joins us now to react. Doctor, thanks for coming on this morning. A lot of people are saying that this is evidence of just how politicized the legal system has become. What do you think?
Well, it's even beyond that. That shows you how vulnerable we are. I mean, not only how many cases do we need, but let's look at this case at every level, the level of insanity in how we're approaching a compound of radical Islamists. We're not hearing that term Islamist. We're not hearing the term jihad. The baby that died that was 3 years old was part of some ritual that was apocalyptic about the end of times, where they were training the other 11 kids to shoot up schools. They had tunnels. It was clearly here they were starving, torturing the kids, and that's all we're hearing about is the child abuse, but yet they had enough money to buy weapons, do arms training, teach them how to rapid fire while they're moving, and yet the judge only heard the defense case about racism and basically made statements like, oh, really, I've heard it's troubling, but I don't know if there's enough evidence to really say that they're a danger yet, because they haven't heard enough to back it up. And it shows you how vulnerable we are. The patriarch of it, the ringleader, Siraj Wahhaj Jr., was laughing as he saw his fellow terror cell advocates basically being released. So ultimately, we are weak in this, and this is a war, and judges and others refuse to recognize this fact.
What do we do about it?
We need to educate America. We need to educate our legal system, media. I mean, how many Americans learning about this story know that the patriarch, while he may not have been involved in this, is an imam in many of the leading American Islamist organizations? Now, there's no evidence that he was involved in the compound, but on the other hand, he was a gateway drug to the radicalization. So all of these teaching elements that we have from Case, from San Bernardino to Boston and on, and yet we keep doing a whack-a-mole program, relearning, pretending we don't know anything, like we have this global amnesia. And we need to, just like you're doing in covering this, we need to be tougher, with more tough love on our Muslim community, to say, these people aren't self-combusting out of nowhere. Right. These radicals had a plan, and the judicial system needs to recognize it and treat them in a tough love rather than simply acquiescing like they're just petty criminals.
And to the good Muslims out there, which there are so many, that they need to condemn this behavior, call it out, and be vigilant of it. Let's go to the governor here to hear what she had to say, the governor of New Mexico. This is the result of liberal pretrial release rules put in place by the New Mexico Supreme Court. Judicial activism at its worst. And what could happen here, you have these people let out. A lot of these Muslim extremists are suicidal. I mean, what happens if they go and they get a gun and they say, you know what, I got an ankle bracelet on, I don't care. I'm going to go shoot as many people as I can before the cops catch up to me.
And I think that's why they're scoffing at us. I mean, so many trials of radical Islamists in Europe and in the U.S., Tariq Mahenna in Boston, laughed at their trial, used the trial as a stage because they don't care. They were living in the worst of squalid conditions anyway. Prison is probably a step up for where they were. So to them, this is a war. They are jihadi soldiers, and they're going to feel victory no matter what happens, whether they get caught or not. And what the judge needs to understand, and so many other future judges need to understand, is that these people relish in death, suicide, and jihadi arms, if you will. So, sending them out actually is giving them another opportunity and putting us at risk.
Dr. Jasser, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, sir. Anytime. Thank you.
It is 17 minutes after the hour. A new turn in the search for missing college student Molly Tibbetts. Authorities just zeroed in on 5 key areas, how they're connected to the case that's captured the country.
I think what Trump was able to do is pick up on the failures of the Democratic Party.
Bernie Sanders throwing a dagger at liberals and coming to President Trump's defense in a way. Why he says it's time for Democrats to look in the mirror. Stay tuned.
My man is smooth like that.
Good morning to you and welcome back. Today is Congresswoman Maxine Waters' birthday. Listen to her shocking wish before she blows out the candles.
My biggest birthday wish would be that we're able to get a leader of this country who represents us, who has the respect of all of our allies. I would wish that we could remove him from office.
The California Democrat is 80 years old. Trump supporters feeling the burn. Bernie Sanders coming to their defense while discussing President Trump's 2016 win.
I think what Trump was able to do is pick up on the failures of the Democratic Party that did not talk about the fact that hardworking, decent people saw their jobs going to Mexico or China.
Sanders going on to say that the Democratic Party needs to be more focused on the needs of working families.
Resonates better than deplorable, I guess. All right, Antifa, known for violent riots, and they're being investigated for threats to murder the president. But some are saying that CNN's Chris Cuomo went a bit too far in defending this group in a monologue on his show.
When someone comes to call out bigots and it gets hot, even physical, are they equally wrong as the bigot they are fighting? I argue no.
All right, those comments coming after a weekend protests, which saw that group Antifa attacking police officers and even news reporters. The liberal media continuing to excuse Antifa violence masked as anti-hate protesters. Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce thinks the real danger is ignoring the rule of law.
We have a system here that is unique in that people who we disagree with, we can argue against them. We have these ideas in the open, and we have legislation, and we have a government that protects us with the rule of law. That's what makes America unique and different. What they're suggesting is all of that should go out the window. They've also invested in a narrative that says that President Trump is the creation of a new racism, and yet the problem for them is you had, what, about 25 white racists in Washington, D.C. Most Americans, Tucker, get more people at their backyard barbecue every weekend. The media is abandoning its job by not only not presenting the real facts of what's occurred here, which is what we've just discussed, but casting it as something large, existentially threatening, and something that should legitimize violence against individual Americans.
Over the weekend, hundreds of masked Antifa protesters clashed with police in Washington and in Charlottesville. That resulted in at least 5 arrests.
A major American coat maker is taking its business to new heights.
Tracy Carrasco from our sister network Fox Business here with more on the relocation plans, going about a mile up, huh, Tracy?
Yes, that is right. The North Face is moving out of the San Francisco Bay Area, moving to the Mile High City to Denver. That's where it will be headquartered. This move should happen by 2020. It will take about 650 jobs with it. But this move follows the decision earlier this week for parent company VF Corporation to split into 2 separate corporations. One company will focus on denim, namely the brands Lee and Wrangler, and then the other company is going to focus on activewear. That's where the North Face comes in.
A lot of people bailing out of California anyway, as far as businesses,
Seems to be getting tougher to fly with your pets if you need to.
Yes, not just flying, but also taking your emotional support animal onto a cruise ship. We'll get to that in a minute, but Southwest Airlines, the latest airline to crack down on their policies for emotional support animals. Now they are only limiting this to 1 animal per passenger. It has to be a dog or a cat, and the emotional support animal has to stay in its carrier or on a leash at all times. Royal Caribbean Cruises, they are also cracking down. They will no longer allow passengers to bring aboard an emotional support animal onto its ships. If you did make a reservation before July 30th, you can still sail with your emotional support animal, but after that, you're not going to be able to do it.
People take advantage of that. It's a racket. Everybody's got it now, and most people don't really need it. But I was on a flight the other day, and I heard the 2 dogs barking at each other. And I'm like, am I on a plane right now listening to the 2 dogs barking? That's crazy. Yeah. All right, Tracy, thanks so much. 25 minutes after the hour, police chiefs blasting Elizabeth Warren for calling the entire criminal justice system racist. Our next guest, the top boss of the Massachusetts Police Association, Chief Stephen Wajner, is leading that charge. Why he says the Democratic senator's comment is the exact narrative that is getting police officers killed.
And a fridge full of free beer? Sound too good to be true? The catch to get it open.
Don't feel like going home, so I'm gonna stay right here on the edge of this beer.
Why would you go out of your way and wander around a warehouse for paint when you can just swing by your local Ace? Ace has top-rated paint like one-coat coverage Valspar, can match any color, and mixes it with something that's hard to find. Award-winning service. Because the way we see it, if anyone is going to go out of their way,
It should be us.
it's the Ace Extra Mile promise. If it ever takes more than one trip to complete your paint project, we'll bring you what you need, and delivery is free.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
What do we got?
Keep an eye on that branch. Might get windy. Have a good shift.
Fire pit, last use 0600. I'd stay close. Morning.
Welcome back. In a Fox News alert, weather and poor construction may be to blame for a deadly Italian bridge collapse. At least 35 people are dead, while the search for survivors could take days longer. Italy's transportation minister now demanding the resignation of senior officials involved in construction of that bridge. Witnesses saw lightning strike the bridge moments before it came crashing down. Most of the victims were in cars that were riding across the bridge before plunging down maybe 100, 200, 300 feet in some cases. The reward for missing Iowa college student Molly Tibbetts jumps to nearly $400,000 since she disappeared 4 weeks ago. Crime Stoppers says it's the largest reward for its organization in Iowa state history. Investigators narrowing their focus in and around areas of Brooklyn, Iowa, where Tibbetts was last seen July 18th. They include a car wash, a major highway truck stop, her boyfriend's house, and 2 areas of farmland. No suspects have been announced. A crackdown on Christianity. China's ruling Communist Party is wiping out displays of the faith in their country, ripping down posters showing Jesus Christ or the cross, and they're being replaced with images of their president, Xi Jinping. The Bible also banned there, and children cannot visit church. The move is part of a new plan from Xi, who wants to eradicate what he calls Western threats from China. All right, two of the four impeached Supreme Court justices in West Virginia are stepping down. Justice Robin Davis announcing her retirement and avoiding a trial. Another justice resigned last month right before hearings began about a possible impeachment. The entire Supreme Court in West Virginia is accused of corruption. This is really something. Incompetence also and neglect of duty after allegedly spending more than $3 million on their office renovations. Democrats call the impeachment a partisan witch hunt. Jillian.
Police officers firing back after Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren said this about law enforcement.
The hard truth about our criminal justice system. It's racist. I mean, front to back.
Chief Stephen J. Waynard called those comments, quote, a slap in the face, and he joins us now. Thank you for your time this morning. You heard the round of applause in that video after she made that statement. What do you think?
Well, good morning. I think it was one of those things that was a very surprising comment to see, and certainly it struck home with a lot of us up there in Massachusetts. When I read everything, interestingly enough, that was the day that my officers from my department and myself had been responding to tornado damage in our area. First time in 30 years I've seen that. And so we worked very hard that whole day with a lot of things. And to get back at night and see that as a comment that really struck you as frustrating, to say the least.
She did.
And so that's why we put together everything that we did.
She did sort of clarify. So let's go ahead and take a look at this statement to the Boston Globe where Elizabeth Warren says, quote, I spoke about an entire system, not individuals, and will continue to work on reforms to make the criminal justice system fairer. How dangerous is it, though, to talk like that, to use words like racist when you're talking about the criminal justice system?
Well, that is a big problem because I think that contributes to a lot of the actions that go against police officers. And in Massachusetts, we had 2 officers killed in the last 4 months and 2 others shot in the town of Falmouth just recently within the last couple of weeks that could have been fatal injuries. And it's just this perpetuated violence against police that really has to stop. The rhetoric and the talk and generalizing police in this category is not helpful. And that's the biggest point that we wanted to make with this whole statement.
Yeah, and there have been 34 police officers shot and killed and shot in the line of duty as of July 28th. I mean, 34. We're halfway through the year. How do those numbers affect you on a mental note? I mean, you go to work in the morning, you say goodbye to your family, you don't know if you're going to come home that day.
You're exactly right. And that's the biggest thing that these comments really don't help. When you generalize any specific group of people, race, ethnic background, religion, whatever you do, if you generalize things and you put this out there that this is the way it is, that just helps a certain fragment of society take action against police officers in this case. And that has to stop. So I think the biggest thing is stop the rhetoric, stop the bashing of police. The police officers are just out there doing their job and enforcing the laws.
You know what?
We are in a position where that's what we're trying to do.
It almost seems like, though, the rhetoric as a whole in this country right now is just at a level that I don't know about you, but I haven't really experienced it or seen it like this before. And not just, again, police officers. I just mean in general. So it's easier said than done, I think, to stop the rhetoric. Is there anything else that we can be doing to try and change this?
Well, I think it starts at the level where the people that are, especially in Congress or the elected officials, because I know my elected officials have been very active and very supportive of us. I think it takes them getting out onto the ground level and working with the officers and seeing what's happening in the communities across the country. You have good people doing good work out there just enforcing the laws. And you might agree with the law, you might disagree with the law, but you have two choices. You follow it or you change it. And the police officers are just out there enforcing laws that are in place. And so if people that want to make these statements go in and work with the officers and try to solve the problems in your particular community. We always have issues we have to address and deal with, and we're perfectly willing to do that, but get down and know it rather than just talk about it.
Yeah, Chief Stephen Wiener, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, dog days of summer. Let's go over to Janice and get a check of the forecast. She's already laughing.
Well, you have such a unique way to toss to me. You know, it's hot, it's wet, dog days of summer.
These are the dog days. It's late August, mid-August.
We have to enjoy the rest of summer. I will say, though, that it has been a wet one across
very
the East
stormy.
Coast. Yes, absolutely. The good news is we have a nice weekend coming up for the East Coast. So let's take a look at it right now. 71 here in New York City, 68 in Cincinnati, 76 in Charleston. We are looking at the potential for, some scattered showers across the East Coast, but otherwise a drying out period is ahead. We're now going to watch for the potential of heavy rain and flooding downpours across portions of the Midwest, the Ohio, the Tennessee, the Mississippi River Valley. So you can see the forecast rainfall now shifting across the central U.S. Now, in areas across the West, that's where we're not getting enough rainfall. We'll see a little bit of rain moving into the Southwest, but areas that really need it, parts of California, the Northwest, where we have dozens of wildfires that continue to burn. And the highs, again, today, very warm, especially across the northern Rockies and getting into California. Again, temperatures in the 100-degree range as we head throughout the work week. There's your forecast today. So watch for dry lightning, unfortunately, across those wildfire areas across the West. And then we'll see that rain over the Midwest, the Mississippi, the Tennessee, and the Ohio River Valley. And you know what? I mean, 91, New York City. We'll take it.
We don't have any other choice.
The humidity is the important number.
I agree.
That is the critical number.
It has been a tough summer across the East Coast. We've had a lot of rain, a lot of humidity. But you know what? Are we going to be complaining when we've got 2 feet of snow on the ground?
No, we're not. Actually, we're going to complain in all 4 seasons, Janice, because that's...
At least you're honest, and that's what I love about you.
We're just going to whine.
Thank you, Janice.
Bye.
It is 37 minutes after the hour. He wanted to be the leader of the free world, but couldn't name any other world leader. And you can't forget this.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo? About Aleppo.
And what is Aleppo?
You're kidding.
No.
The brand new campaign just launched from Libertarian Gary Johnson.
Also, more money, more benefits, and more help for illegal immigrants. The same students who sparked violent riots over free speech are out with a new list of demands. Why Lawrence Jones says UC Berkeley students are actually advocating against themselves.
You got a beard!
If you have... All right, add another to the list. A Democratic House candidate kicks off her general election bid by taking a shot at Nancy Pelosi.
I'll vote against Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, support term limits for party leaders, and I won't take a dime of corporate PAC money.
That is North Carolina's Kathy Manning. In her first TV ad, the political newcomer is running against incumbent Republican Congressman Ted Budd in a Republican-leaning district.
All right, get yourself ready for more campaign moments like this.
What would you do if you were elected about Aleppo?
About
Aleppo.
And what is Aleppo?
You're kidding.
No.
Well, that's former Libertarian presidential nominee Gary Johnson when asked about the Syrian city's refugee crisis. Now he's launching a Senate bid. The former New Mexico governor tweeting, New Mexico deserves a strong, independent voice in the U.S. Senate.
I doubt he'll be back on Morning Joe, though. A brand new list of demands. First, they rioted over free speech. Now students at UC Berkeley are protesting against low wages and demanding housing and legal support for illegal immigrants.
They're also calling for the demilitarization of police. So are these bargaining goals, as the union calls them, crossing the line? Here with his take, editor-in-chief of campusreform.org, Lawrence Jones, looking like a new man.
Hey there.
Lost a couple pounds. You got a beard. Looking good. All right. So what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, this is young people working against their own interests. They can't complain about the college debt, which a lot of young people do complain about, and then work against their own interests. It's almost just absurd. The same college, UC Berkeley, also proposed $800K for illegals. You had other universities that we reported on, like Brown University, that's talked about paying for masters for illegals. So you see all these young people complain on one side of the hand about the cost rising and them not being able to, them going into so much debt, and then they work against their own interests.
Well, I mean, is any of this grounded in any kind of reality for a lot of these students? I mean, the thing that we take away from a lot of college campuses is that there's just not a lot of life experience in there.
Well, there's a lot of motions, but they're right now in college. But once they get off the college campuses, then their mind changes once they see the bills coming in the mail saying repay all that debt that you got in college.
I don't know. I wonder what happened to the days where you picked a school and you went there.
Yeah, I mean, the part of the problem is a lot of these kids aren't paying for it. Their moms are paying for it. They're getting all these loans for it. And so,
Berkeley,
you know, they're activists. This is a generation of activists, not just on the college campuses, but where they buy their stuff. Like, for example, Tom's shoes. Young people buy because of the movement, them giving back, not because Tom's shoes look good.
So you don't like Tom's shoes. You know, the president complains all the time about a lot of people on the left being more concerned about people coming into this country than the people that live here right now, and illegal immigrants. Is this another case of that?
Oh, this is definitely a case of being more concerned about the illegal immigrants than themselves. Now, I must give the young people some credit. At least they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're willing to sacrifice high tuition, which their tuition will go up because of all the subsidies they're going to give to illegal students, and they're going to get the bill. They're going to be paying for it.
But do they know that, or are they even thinking about that?
They probably aren't thinking about it, but I guarantee when they leave the college university and they start seeing all those student fees that they paid, then they'll realize.
Okay,
maybe too late then.
So we ran a story earlier this morning about gender ethics studies professors earning more, about $15,000 more than math and science professors. This just seems crazy. Is this the future? Like, is this where we're headed?
Well, this is just a classic example of these young people being more concerned in the college campuses about social justice, and they're willing to sacrifice their tuition for this. Now, I always argue on the other hand of this, they should be investing more into math and science education. The president has had great success with jobs being, we have a lot of jobs that are out there. A lot of them are in math and science, and sadly, students aren't able to compete in the U.S. because we don't take those courses. We're more concerned about liberal arts, which I'm not bashing those people, but you got to come to reality that you may not get a job when you go into the workforce because it's overly saturated.
Well, I mean, what would you do with a cultural studies degree in the first place? Well, those are one of those degrees you come out of college, like, what now?
Maybe they can go to the University of Tennessee, which we've reported on. They have over, they're paying their chief diversity officer, which is what these degrees would get you, over $200K just to be a chief diversity officer. There's all these social justice positions that we've been reporting on campus reform.
But there's not that many of them.
Oh, there's
not like going into business.
That goes back to my point, though. It's overly overly saturated. A lot of people want these positions, but they could do math and science and get high-paying jobs easily.
Talk about this for an hour. Jeez, thank you, Lawrence.
Crazy kid.
Good to see you.
He is a whole new man.
I know,
He walked
is.
in, we
It's
almost
crazy.
didn't recognize him.
Look at me like you saw it
In
go.
8 weeks, he lost 40 pounds. He got a haircut and a beard.
I told you how he did it on my social media, and I know Brian Kilmeade's dying to know how he did it. So, good morning, Brian. You can go check out social media.
I assume the way Rob stays in shape, Pilates. Am I correct?
No, it's bar, actually.
Thank you.
All right.
Hot yoga.
All right, fantastic. We can't see that footage coming up next hour. Well, along with Rob's footage of his hot yoga, we also have Tommy Lahren will be here live. She's going to be talking about what Maxine Waters wants for her birthday, and it's something anti-Trump stunner. Charlie Kirk here on the next generation of Americans and what they did in the primary Tuesday last night. And Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn wants to be the next senator from Tennessee to replace Bob Corker. Why is she struggling so much in a very red state? We'll discuss all that and so much more over the next 3 hours. And who knows, we might even end with a song.
Oh.
Ooh.
Only if you dance, though, to that
Right.
song.
Remember, I have never met a dance floor that did me any good.
That's right, Brian. All right, thanks so much. When we come back, it's every kid's dream come true.
New schedule, 8:15 to 10. Rock.
Oh, man. So it's not the School of Rock, but one school district is officially saying so long to Mondays. Carly Shimka is here with the reaction to the $1 million science experiment cutting school weeks down the floor. Today's Pop.